Scotty, what you're saying about we're sold this idea, I think that part of my issue is that we're selling this idea to each other. Where there's not an external force, there's not some wizard up on a mountain that's deluding us to believe these things. We're doing it to each other, and so by only posting highlights, by only showing people the best stuff that we do, we're taking a younger generation and saying, "This is me every day."
The Perspective Podcast is fuel for your mind and creative grind. Each week, we break down the art of healthy hustling, overcoming the inner critic, and growing your creative business. PC family, we have a special episode today featuring my creative collective of Grizzly Wheeler, Matt Dawson of Stay Gray Ponyboy, and Jason Craig on the show today. Welcome back to the Perspective Podcast, my brethren. How's everyone doing? And let's all just speak at the same time. We'll figure it out.
Man, I'm doing good. Just got back from the DMV, so I'm on a high note.
Grizz?
Yeah, that's what does it for you, the DMV, Jason.
That's right. If you want some perspective on life, go to the DMV.
I thought he was going to say Carnival Cruise.
Carnival Cruise. Well, this should be an interesting experiment. So for those who don't know, we are building off of a Clubhouse session we all did a couple weeks ago. By the time this comes out, it was pretty well received. Got a lot of good feedback. Everybody's like, man, I wish I could listen back into it. I couldn't make it. So I'm like, well, fuck, let's just do a podcast episode. And before we highlight the topic today and then just cut the hounds loose and go crazy, let's just go around the circle and do a quick introduction via who's on my screen first. So in case a lovely listener may not know about you, and then I'll link them up. Everybody's been on the podcast before, so I'll dish out the podcast episode that they can find them on in the outro. So let's go Jason, Grizzly, then Matt.
I'm Jason Craig. I am a graphic designer, illustrator, and muralist from Augusta, Georgia. I work for myself, have my own company, which I work under my own name. And I like to run my mouth a lot and speak at conferences and things like that.
Grizz.
I'm Josh Grizzly Wheeler. Some people call me Grizzly. Some people call me Josh. Try to be as goofy as possible and randomly serious, and make things for a living, physical objects.
Grizzly Wheeler print shop, like come on.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, Grizzly Wheeler print shop. Sorry, that's it. Instagram, Grizzly Wheeler. There you go.
And he's like hella professional in his Instagram captions, but a fucking dork in real life.
That's right.
I'm the least cool person you'll ever meet.
Bullshit. I'm Matt Dawson. I'm a graphic designer, logo, branding, identity guy, occasional illustrator. Though I feel weird saying that with Jason Craig in the room. And I'm based out of Austin, Texas, and I run the crop conference, so that people like Jason can get there on stage, and people
That's
like Scotty
right.
and Grizz one day we can get you out of that warehouse and up on the stage.
It might be a mistake.
And I would say why we're all here today is because we've met at conferences. You know, I didn't know any of you until I got a link up at conferences. So I met Jason Craig at the first one, and then Matt Dawson at my second time around at Creative South. He invited me over to Crop Conference. That's where I met Grizzly. And now we're all good buds. So topic today, I'm going to let Jason take the floor and kind of prompt him to introduce this one because this was his idea behind the scenes. This dude just has a bunch of gold, you know, always lingering in his noggin. So go back to listen to his episodes too, but I'll let you take the floor and kind of introduce this one.
So one of the things we talked about on the Clubhouse talk, we're sort of talking about the last straw, like why we went out on our own or why we went back to a job and all that. But we touched on a lot of different topics. And the thing that I just felt like we could continue to talk about, this trend that I see where it seems as if people work to be working, like that is the goal, is to, you know, they say I'm a designer, I'm an illustrator, and that is their goal, is to be regarded as an illustrator or something, when really that's not how people used to do. You might have had a job where you punch holes in sheet metal, but whenever you got off work, people didn't say, oh, there goes Grizzly, the sheet metal guy. It was Grizzly the dad, or Grizzly the you know, snowboarder, or whatever that you might be. And nowadays it seems like that we all just want to be in the game and not sitting on the bench, and we're worried about what happens whenever we don't even think about the rest of our life. And not to get too heavy with it, but I read an obituary the other day, and this obituary mentioned where this guy worked twice, and it mentioned his family once. And I was just thinking about that. Like, if I had an employee that something happened to, and then his obituary said, "Oh, he worked for Jason Craig. He was an all right guy. He worked for Jason Craig." I don't know. I just don't know how I'd feel about that. Like, if that was me. And so what I want to discuss is just kind of the things that the motivation of why we do what we do, because I've heard people that do great work say, yeah, I'm a good illustrator, but Nike's not calling me, so I'm a failure. And it's like, but you're doing the same job. You're doing the exact same work. You're enjoying it the same, whether you're making a poster for a band or you're making a poster for yourself, whether you're making a t-shirt. You have Grizzly's making a t-shirt for Invisible Creature, or if he's making it for me. To me, I think that the motivation and the fulfillment should be the same. And I don't know if everybody agrees with that. Maybe you have more fun working for Reebok or Under Armour than you do working for the Philly cheesesteak place down the street. But for me, I enjoy working for my nut and bolt warehouse client as much as I do the Braves.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Like we've rounded some weird corner to where, now our conversations that we have with peers, like whenever it's just like, hey, how's it going? They don't tell us how their life is going. We're told what they've been working on. And like that's true for like 95% of like my creative friends. And it's funny, I only notice it with my creative friends. Whenever I talk to friends from like high school or college, whenever I ask them how they're doing, they actually tell me about their life. Whenever I ask like a creative friend, like how's it going? I just start hearing like a list of projects that they've been working on. And like that's cool, I mean, like that's what we all, that's what we're all into. But like at some point, like it shifted to it's what people are all about now. And I've got to agree with Jason. Like I've never been big on, I've never been big on the celebrity client thing. Like I put just as much effort into, like those mom and pop places, like these little startups, as I would for a bigger client. Like we let these weird things kind of define our worth and, like our sense of self, like in the creative world, like how much projects, like we have going on at any given time, or like who we did work for, like that. It's weird, I don't know how we got there, but that's kind of where we are right
now. Well,
yeah, I would.
Yeah, you go, Grizzly.
I would agree with Matt and Jason. I mean, I guess we're all in different places. Like when you're younger, I would, you're hungrier and you're trying to make your name. I mean, I got into what I'm doing kind of late versus most people, but you always hear that you always hear that reference, things are cyclical, and they kind of are, because I mean, I feel like we're probably all somewhat arriving in this place in life where you kind of maybe ignored the simpler things, and you're starting to realize those are probably the most beautiful and like valuable things in life. And like working with clients, like we've been pretty lucky. Everybody in this room has been pretty blessed to be able to work with big time people or big time entities. And just from the work side of things, I mean, honestly, I've come to a place where, yeah, I love working with anybody, but I kind of enjoy working with the smaller person now, or the smaller entity versus like we recently had a project we worked on with Hot Wheels, and it didn't go as planned. It was cool, but it just really turned me off. And I mean, I'll work with any entity, but corporate entities are probably, I mean, just to be honest, my least favorite people to work with at this point, because they're just giant machines. And like Jason's saying, I mean, he's worked with big time people, but he's in a community where he works with a lot of probably people no one's ever heard of, but he does killer work. And Matt's done the same thing. I mean, he sent projects over for places in Baton Rouge that most people probably haven't heard of, but it looks incredible. So yeah, without ranting too much, I mean, and maybe it has to do with the fact the internet's come into full force in the last 15 or 20 years, where people have these lives online that they think matter, and it's important, and you can use it as a tool to help generate your own life and revenue. But I think I'm coming to a place where I realize it's fun, it's cool, but it doesn't fucking matter. Like what's real is my friendship with Matt and Jason and you. not our fucking online profiles, even though they're tools and they can be amazing, incredible marketing tools, which is what I've used it for.
I think most of it stems from we see everybody's highlight reels. I know when I started getting into this realms of like going to a conference and seeing all these heavy hitters speak, I'm like, wow, so no one's going to take me seriously unless I like take this path that they took or I have that big name client. So just get wrapped up in the realms of comparison. And I think that fucked me up for a while because I felt like, okay, I got to be this curated version of myself. I have to like project that I'm bigger than what I actually am. I can't like truly show the nerdy, weird side of me and like go this route of a coach that I've always been a coach, since college and everything else. So I thought I had to like follow these steps. Here's the path for success in order to gain clout from your creative peers and one day hopefully impress your idols. Cause I was all about like, oh my gosh, if a Draplin or if Lisa Congdon knows who I am, then I must be doing something right. And yeah, it's a fake world that we live in and try to thrive for when really it's like, dude, I want to know more about your kids. I want to like talk about my life as a dad. Like that's way more doper to me than a client project.
Right. And see, I think part of it too is that even internally, like we identify ourselves by those things as well. Like what Matt said, yeah, somebody how they're doing, and they immediately talk about the projects they're working on. I think that those people are making the mistake of getting off work and going and sitting down to dinner and thinking about the projects they're working on instead of thinking about the stuff that they have around them. And maybe some of those people don't have a lot of stuff around them. I have a family that I've sit down at the dinner table with every single night, and every day we ask each person, what would you do today? And the rule is if you don't tell us something that happened to you today or you did, that we all get to make it up, and we each get to make up what happened to you today, which generally 9 times out of 10 ends up with you pooped your pants. And so it kind of motivates the family to talk about like what they got going on. And it's we're not hamsters on a wheel. We're supposed to have a goal. We're supposed to have a destination. My goal was to raise my kids and make sure that they have every opportunity, which I've done. And now I'm in what I call a third quarter. And third quarter is for me, my goal is not to work with any specific client or even do any specific type of work. My goal is to just do things my way and enjoy it and thrive from it. That's my goal, is to do things my way for myself, enjoy it, and thrive.
I think that's really important, is, making that decision to do things your way, because so often we're kind of molded and influenced by how other people are doing their thing. But the key part of that is their thing. Like that's their thing. Like we don't need to, we don't need to constantly be looking at what everybody else has on their plate, because like that shit's kind of detrimental to like our not to turn this into a mental health thing, but like it fucks with your head a little bit, right? Because you see what they're doing and you're just like, oh man, like they're doing this big restaurant client, or they're doing this big brewery client, or this celebrity tapped them for this or that. Like that's their way, and that's fine. But like staying in our own lane and doing things our way is, I think, really important, and like kind of like often overlooked. Like we're all trying. A lot of times we try to be somebody else whenever they're, that role is already filled.
Right.
Like you've got to be you, and you've got to do shit your way and focus on what makes you happy and what makes you thrive. And at the end of the day, man, if we're 6 feet in the dirt and we've got a killer curated Instagram or Dribble or Behance or whatever the fuck is popular right now, like that doesn't matter, because you're gone. Like, and once I started thinking about taking my life a little bit more seriously, then I, like not more serious than I take my work. Like I value my clients, and but I was living to work, for the longest time. And like once you kind of shift that perspective and you're just like, that's great. I've done all these projects, like I've made a little bit of cash, like I've made a little bit of social currency. But then like you look at what it's done to you, like how much have you lived during that time? You're just waking up, wash, rinse, repeat, like the exact same cycle. And it's easy to get into whenever you're chasing after something that doesn't really matter in the long run.
I think it's fine. I think it's fine to do that if you have a goal, like say that you want to buy a new car, if you want to get out of debt, right? You say, I want to get out of debt. I'm going to have to spend the next 6 months, 16 months, whatever, hunkered down, just working my ass off and staying focused. Because at the end of that, you pay off that debt, you buy that car, you go on a vacation, you upgrade your living situation, whatever it might be. But then you say, okay, well, what's my next goal then? How do I reevaluate? One of the greatest things, and this is something that I do, is Warren Buffett. He said the way that he got to achieve his goals is he would write down the top 10 things that he had going on, and he would circle the top 3. He'd figure out the top 3, and he would focus on those 3, and he would ignore the other 7 completely. He didn't spread his attention across all 10 things. He focused on 3 things. And then once he accomplished those, he made a brand new list. He didn't just bump number 4 up to number 3. He made a brand new list because the goals of the thing about making goals is they're made by the person you were yesterday. And the person you are today or tomorrow might have different goals or different circumstances. You might need a rainy day fund. And then whenever you finally get it, it might not be raining. You have to come up with something new. But I think that to just be on the hamster wheel as a goal, I just want to be known at a conference, or I just want people to wear my enamel pin that Grizz made. I think that that's a mistake. I think it is. I think it's a mistake to be defined by how many holes you can drill in sheet metal or whatever it is that we make look sexier. But I think it's a mistake to say that that's why I am. I mean, if Grizz said I printed 20,000 hats this week, I have no frame of reference for that. I don't know if that's good or bad. If he says it's good, then I'd be like, oh, okay, well, good for you. And then he goes, I paid off my house by printing hats. I'd be like, oh shit, you paid off your house by printing hats? I'd be like, I might want to get into the hat printing business.
I think Matt and Jason are dead on. Specifically what Matt said, like, just it can majorly affect your mental state, and your mental state is everything. And me personally, I'm kind of going through that with my business at the moment. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with busting your ass. I mean, the last few years I've really busted my ass, and I was super blessed through COVID when it affected some people massively in a negative way. But I was able to basically pay off all debt at my shop, and I had to work my ass off. I mean, I had 7 days a week. But I'm at this place where, like in the printing industry in specific, and this probably applies to a lot of sectors, there's kind of an 80-20 rule that, 80% of your clientele make you lose money and you make money with 20%. And I'm kind of reprioritizing or reorganizing my business because I used to try and take everything. And what's funny, is if you open the floodgates, you can just have an insane amount of work, but if you really analyze it, you're running yourself ragged and you're probably not making money. And making money is what allows you to help people or get your life straight. Everything we're saying is kind of a giant blender of factors that go into whatever your individual picture of success is. And we all have different pictures of that, but overall we're kind of the same. Like, my picture of success is controlling my life as best as I can to provide for my family, but yet still be able to see them regularly. Because if you let the teeter-totter sway too far either way, you spend too much time with your family screwing off, you're not going to have a business. You spend too much time with the business, you're going to lose your family. And I mean, I'm personally in a place where I'm like, looking back at the last 5 years, I've really ran hard, and I'm like, man, did I run too hard? I mean, it's never bad to run, but you can run too hard. And I'm just kind of personally, like Matt said, it's about mental health, and the shit will run you ragged. I'm already losing my train of thought because I got ADD like a motherfucker.
No, you're good. I think it was Ben Jenkins was on recently, and it's not about work-life balance, about work-life alignment. And I was like,
I don't even know if that's a real thing. Like, everybody wants to talk about balance. Like, fuck that balance shit. Like, that don't exist. Like, you know what you got to do? You got to wake up.
Your priorities all align to what matters most.
You wake up and you get after it, and that's it. Like, shit happens. You got to deal with it. You want to be an entrepreneur, you better get real good at problem solving, because that's all you are. You're a problem solver. And if you solve problems quick, you make money, and you don't got to go, work for the machine in a way. I don't know. I'm ranting.
I want to recap some heavy points real quick, something to add on top of Matt, like staying in your own lane. I want to challenge people. Do you want to be remembered for the version 1.0 of yourself when you're buried 6 feet deep? Or do you want to be known as a version 2.0 of someone else? And I want to like talk about the fuel sources then of like things got to come from within, the motivation. Everybody, I get so many questions of like, oh, I just lack the motivation to do my thing at the end of the day or the first thing in the morning. I'm like, dude, motivation comes from the act of doing. So like in terms of fuel sources, what drives you? And it's got to be more like, I want to be known more than just creating dope work. I have a student like Nino who I've been challenging, and she's like, I just really want to be known for like creating cute work. And I was like, dude, it's got to be deeper than that, especially if you're going to be working with me. And I'm like, you got to have something more tied to it, especially in a world that's just oversaturated with everybody vomiting whatever they create on social media. Like, what do you want to be known for? What's the interaction or the experience you want someone to feel when they engage with your work? Or, what's the value you want to provide? I know that's a loosely termed word. And so that really got her thinking like, okay, like if people want to buy my shit, there's got to be more substance to it. At the end of the day, what's the reason why you're doing what you're doing? In the beginning, for me, it was for clout. I was chasing clout and respect from peers who my work wasn't for in the first place. Now it's like, okay, I'm chasing, if we have our definition of success, I would like to say mine is to blaze my own path, doing the shit I love that lights me up like a Christmas tree standing tall in March, making an impact on the people I truly give a shit about. That is like my definition of success. That's what drives me each day. And then the other defining factor of my why is to change my family tree. I don't come from money. Getting out of debt was like the first carrot that I was chasing that pushed me to work hard as hell to give my family a better life, and now it's like, okay, change my family tree. So I have like this realm of who I want to make an impact with my work on. And then like the driving force is to like do this. So at the end of the day, it's more than just like, hey, I want to be known for creating cool work.
The debt thing could be its own episode, because debt, when you don't come from money, you gotta make decisions to acquire things you think you need. But the discipline is that debt doesn't just manifest itself. You make choices. I was younger. I made choices that created debt, which is the monster that enslaves you. And you're never gonna have a life in this country where you don't have an expense. You can pay your property off. You're gonna have fucking property taxes. Where you live, that's gonna increase and stuff like that. But that right there, I mean, you can choose whatever you want to do for a living. And your debt is probably going to dictate whether you're going to have the time to pursue it and develop a revenue stream. I mean, that is just, I don't want to say it's everything, but it is a massive factor in whether you're going to go 6 feet under and never have done shit because you had to have the iPhone and the MacBook and all. I had a piece of shit Windows. I had a piece of shit Windows computer when I started that I got on discount when I worked my job at Office Depot that would crash on me all the time. And I still remember saving for 3 fucking years to get an iMac. And when I got it, I was just like, oh, and it's like, it's a tool. I didn't buy it because I wanted a fucking I bought it because it's a more reliable tool. And I had to work my ass off for it. And I didn't have credit. And I didn't have any of that shit to go finance it. But yeah, debt is so massive that can cancel all your dreams.
Okay,
if you fuck your debt up.
I've made a decision here. The next episode, because I already vibe into this. The
Just
next
debt.
episode, I want it to be about like
Jason can tell you about getting shit organized. I mean, he's killing it over in Augusta. And most people will probably be like, oh, it's Augusta. Like, it looks like a fucking dream to me at this point, because I live in Charleston and it's $2,000 for a piece of shit brick house in a neighborhood that has drive-bys, like last week where I live. And it's like, yeah, that debt, man. That debt is everything.
So the next episode we do this together is going to be about getting out of debt and investing big in yourself, even when it's scary. Decided. But what are you about to say, Jason?
So I didn't forget your original question, Scott.
Yeah, like let's talk about the fuel source. Why are we
doing
that?
Fuel source? I mean, I still, and I don't mind admitting it, but I still have this big chip on my shoulder from where I grew up, because I grew up in the Midwest too, and I always forget that Iowa and Illinois are really close together. I always think like Iowa and Idaho,
neighbors,
right? And so that's where I come up. So I understand where you come from on a lot of stuff whenever you say that the people around you don't understand what you're doing. And that's how I grew up. And I knew that I could not survive in that climate. And the thing that I think that honestly, I would probably be in prison or freshly out of prison. I would have probably been a really successful meth dealer or something like that. But I would not be a creative in the way that I am had I not moved to the South. But still, every time that a client gives me money, every time that somebody hits me up and says, I like what you do, can you do it for me? I think about, I literally think I could do this. Like I think I can do this. I think I can be this thing. And I've been a designer, an artist for 22 years. And after 22 years, I still say, I think I might be able to do this. And really it's just that I'm not in a factory, I'm not in prison, I'm not on a farm, and that's it.
Man,
It's a
that's a
gift
win
that I
right
still
there.
have. Yeah, and that's it. Every time I draw a picture, I see it as a privilege that I'm not working on a farm somewhere, and it's amazing to me because my whole family, they're all union dudes that worked hard, and they'd come home, they never talked about work ever, not one time. I have no idea what my grandfathers did. I know what they made. I know what the company they worked for made, but I have no clue what they did because they didn't talk about that. My one of my grandpas was into race cars, and the other one is into all kinds of like Indian artifacts and archery and shit like that. And that's how I know them. And I think it's a mistake for us to be like, oh, I know Matt, he's good at typography. I know Grizz, he's good at printing. I know Scotty, he's good at podcasts. It should be that's Matt. Matt plays in bands. Matt's been in some touring bands and done some really cool stuff. Grizzly lives in Charleston and is
It's
from
a mystery.
Jacksonville and has reinvented himself. You know, I mean, you should know more about people than their job. I know more about my grandfathers and I know nothing about their job, but how many people just know us because of our vocation? What if the guidance counselor told us to be a plumber? Would we want to be going around being like, oh, there goes Matt. He's got his butt crack out plumbing all day. I don't know anything else about him.
I think plumbers make bank though, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Dawson's Dookie repair.
We got to brand that.
Forever number 2 in our hearts.
That's right. By the way, if I would have became a plumber, I'd probably be really close to retiring by now, and I'll never get to retire from this.
Oh shit! Like electrician or plumber, go to always needed.
Yes,
That's something I think about a lot. Is like when do people in our position retire? And like I think the answer is never. One, because I think for the most part, like the career of creatives like us and our particular skill sets, like we're not making investment banker money. Like I still envision working, like into my, I'll be 40 this year, but like I still envision working into my 50s and 60s and maybe even beyond, but like I like doing it. Like it's not something I'm like looking to achieve like retirement. But one of the scary parts, and we were talking about this with Draplin the other night about like getting getting aged out, because there's constantly a fresh cycle of new blood coming into the creative world. But like instead of letting that be like an oh shit moment, using that as fuel to like stay inspired and like stay up on your game is kind of like the challenge that I find. But one of my biggest fears whenever I first started designing, like this is my lucky number 13th year of doing this, and I worked for a guy, and I could pinpoint in like the timeline of graphic design based on his style, like where he stopped evolving, and he was miserable. Like he was our art director, he was just miserable. He fucking hated coming into work. He hated everything, and that was like my first experience in this world. And I was like, shit, is this like, what am I getting into? Like, I thought this was going to be fun. Like, I might as well go be like a banker or something where everybody hates their job. But, it kind of like just set me on this path to never stagnate and to constantly try to get better. And, like, as I am approaching 40 and have been doing this, like, not as long as Jason, but, like a little over half that time, like I envision doing this for at least the next 20 years of my life, like, and I don't see it stopping. I just want to keep evolving and pushing. And
where does that come from though? Like this is self-initiated, where's the spark coming from? Because no one's like being like, hey, in order for you to get to level 33 as a wizard, you got to do these things, Matt. This is stemming from you taking initiative on. Where's that come from? Because people are missing this, dude. They think like there's an external source to tap into to get on this mindset you're in.
I think it just comes with time. Like I think it just comes with time and experience. And you know, like I said the other day during Clubhouse, you know, like life is essentially just like a series of straw stacking moments, you know, like the final straw comes for different things at different times, you know, like you were talking about your goals and kind of dreams, like whenever you're chasing clout and now you're chasing something different, like all of this shit evolves over time and changes. And I think that's kind of where the drive comes from, you know, like if we just had one goal and we got to that goal, you know, do you just sit down and rest? You know, like, you know, we've said it in this episode, like you start another list and you go towards that and you move towards that. So it's kind of like a, you know, like, what is it? Sharks can't stop moving forward or else they die. I feel like creatives are not nearly as badass as sharks, but you know, like I feel like we're kind of like in a similar scenario that, you know, we've got to keep evolving and pushing.
There's that fear of not being relevant as well.
Ooh.
And I think that's part of it. People think about if they took a month off of not posting on Instagram, everybody's going to forget about me. I actually lose followers by posting.
Same.
I swear to God.
Same.
You know, and if I just left my shit sit, it'll just start to climb and climb and climb like a balloon is getting inflated.
You activated that algorithm, son.
Yeah, and there's just this fear that if you're not, that you're only as good as your last project, and I think that there's some truth to some of that, but there's also a balance. Like I see some of these people that they did this one cool thing a few years ago, and they did it just every day that they kind of hang their hat on that one cool thing they did. It just keeps getting older and older, and then all of a sudden you're like a Civil War reenactor. It's like, I did that thing a long time ago, and it's like, cool. What have you done lately?
That's that Uncle Rico shit.
Uncle Rico shit. Yeah,
I'll throw a ball over.
Don't be Uncle Rico. Don't talk about how you won state.
That coach would have just put me in.
But at the same time, like Lance Wyman got an Instagram account not too long ago and has like 50 followers. This is one of the greatest designers of all time. Has an Instagram account and has about 50 followers and gets about 2 likes on a post. The guy made the Mexico 68 Olympics branding. It's one of the coolest branding projects that's ever been made. And so that just shows that there is a huge disconnect between talent, between notoriety, and where you're getting that from. And I think that it's inspiring to me because I don't want to quit doing this. I want to be like, I read a thing that was Milton Glaser, and he was critiquing current craft beer cans. And the shit was so funny because it was like they showed him something like that Kendrick or somebody had done, and he goes, "Oh, great, lightning bolts next." It's just like, and I was like, like the guy could just dismiss everything that we're doing in just like a snap and be like, "Well, I'm doing this other stuff," and stay relevant doing things. I mean, he made the Brooklyn brewery stuff, the big that B that everybody knows, and that's my thing is I want to be 90. I want to hope that my best work comes whenever I'm like Gil Schuler or somebody, whenever, not that Gil Schuler's 90, but he's definitely
pretty old.
He's pretty old. He's getting up
Told
there.
me yesterday. He's pretty old.
He
stays active.
Yeah, he stays active though. But you know, I want to be like that. I want to be a contributing member of this world well into my old age. I just want to be able to pick and choose what it is that I do as I get older and wiser.
I think a big thing to dummy up on that is a lot of people are like, from the highlight reels looking in, like, Instagram, I got to be successful here because so and so are. And I want to just like let people know, just because you may not be popping off on Instagram or being super consistent over there doesn't mean you can't be making big moves behind the scene. You know, I've had like my worst showing this last 2020 of Instagram growth and activity and being super consistent and crushing it on Instagram. It's probably my worst year, but I've had my best year in business. I made more money than ever. I've made more coaching conversations and more students and better relationships than ever. I've learned more from like an online marketing perspective, and I've grown my business and scaled it to where I need more help. And I didn't crush it on Instagram. So you could still make moves and not be a big time baller on Instagram.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of like, Instagram is awesome. It really is my primary source for new business, but it's also kind of like a trap, you know. And like once you get to a certain place with it, you know, you get to X amount of followers, and like it starts to become a job in and of itself to feed that animal, because like Jason said, fear of becoming, irrelevant is real. Like you start to feel like your followers like have this expectation of you to post, and then you put this expectation on yourself. It's like, well, shit, whatever I post next has got to be better than what I posted last
Gotta hit a
week or
home run
last
every
month.
time you
Right.
step up to the
And
plate, and you got to cater
and
to
then
what
you
you
get
think people want.
exactly. Then you get in your head, and next thing you know, like you're adding extra pressure on like the project that you're working on, because it's got to do well on the gram, whenever really all it has to do is do well for your client.
Right.
And like it might not be as cool as, like whatever, hip trendy thing you posted that got 3,000 likes, but like it starts to fuck with you a little bit, and you're just like, man, like, should I post this, or like, is this post worthy? um I don't know, it's a strange beast. I'm right there with you on like this past year being like my least growth year for IG. And honestly, I didn't post a lot in 2020, and it was kind of awesome. Like it set me into like this kind of mindset now, to where like I post when I want to, but like I don't feel that pressure to post anymore. And my numbers show it, but I'm okay with that.
You got other
I
shit
think
moving
it.
in the realms. Sorry,
I,
you go,
I
Grizz.
think it also has. I think it's also being aware enough of what's happening in the cultural climate, because it was an amazing tool when it was before it was destroyed with the algorithm, and there'll be another one soon. And it's a tool. It's just a tool. Too many people use it for their dopamine hit, like of complete. It doesn't fucking matter. Like I used it as a tool specifically, and it worked well, got my name out there, and like I haven't really posted a ton, and I've been introduced into this channel of this upper crust layer of economic activity that once you're into and you maintain, you don't need Instagram or anything. Like Jason is in that channel in Augusta. Like there's real business, there's middle level business, there's entry level business, and like if you do your shit right, you'll level up through that by word of mouth. I don't have anything on my building. I don't want anything on my building. I have code door locks on my door. If you knock on my door and you're not supposed to be here, I'm not answering the door, because I have other shit to do for real people, and I feel super blessed. And it took a lot of hard work to get there. But like, it's like, for example, like Jason mentioned Gil Schuler, and he's not that old, just in case he listens to this. But he called me yesterday.
45, I think he's 45.
He's a savage. He's a perfect example of someone who, if I had to speak for him, could give a shit less about social media, and has just crushed it in this market since the 80s. And he called me yesterday about this new brand that we have a call about next week, for this guy who's got a shitload of money, who's not cutting any corners, and this could be a humongous clothing brand. But like that all manifested because a few years ago, my buddy Jay Fletcher, I never even met him. Him and Gil are friends. He told Gil over the years. Gil has, called on me when he wants high-end stuff. And here we are 5 years later. Like, you don't get there with the Instagram ADD bullshit. You got to dig your freaking heels in and fucking work. Like, Matt's where he's at. Jason, you're where you're at, because hell or high water, you're going to wake the fuck up and get after it. And like, I guess going back to your question, what motivates me is I don't want to be a fucking bum, and I don't want to be broke. Like, because I got kids, and I come from a father who grew up in a fucking junkyard with 10 brothers and sisters, and I'm grateful for that. Some people are born into money. That's awesome. I'm not hating on them. But far, far less people have money than people that don't have money. And if you want to know how to get money and you don't want to be bummed, get to fucking work.
Yeah.
Like, it ain't as romantic as it is not as romantic as that fucking Instagram. I'm telling you. Like, this is fun right now. And when we hang this up, I'm back on the fucking grind over there.
Same, I'm going right. I'm
By the
clocking
way,
back into the matrix, man. And I think that's the thing we deal with, is like we're sold these short-sighted shortcuts and feeling like, okay, this magic elixir can make us pop off overnight. People don't want to do the work. They don't want to stumble blindly into failure to figure out what is or isn't working. They just like, hey, I want the solution. Give it to me. And then they're scared to invest in a coach who can help them bypass these hurdles way quicker.
I hire people here because they see all the insanely cool shit we get to make for stupidly talented people. But when I bring them in here and I take them to the washout booth, they're out of here in a week.
Right.
And so I feel bad, but I put all my fucking money into robots and automation because humans, unfortunately, ain't the future with the way they're acting. And like, I don't really know many people make over $15, $20 an hour. And I don't know where the fuck you're going to live in this country on that. I'm cussing too much. I'm ranting.
Yeah. So Scotty, what you're saying about we're sold this idea, I think that part of my issue is that we're selling this idea to each other. Where there's not an external force, there's not some wizard up on a mountain that's deluding us to believe these things. We're doing it to each other. And so by only posting highlights, by only showing people the best stuff that we do, we're taking a younger generation and saying, this is me every day. And that's why I feel it's important for me to put my cheesesteak branding up. It's important for me to put all the stuff that I do up, and not just the best of the best, client wise, not work wise. And because that's what we're doing. We're doing ourselves a disservice in a lot of different ways. And really, when it comes down to it, we put ourselves at a disadvantage by always keeping each other insecure. We always keep each other afraid of each other. And then what happens is clients come in, and clients are bold, and clients come in and say, how much does it cost to do this logo? And you go, oh shit, I don't know, because we never talked about it. We only show the coolest stuff we do and pretend like we made $1 million. And so I don't know how to do business in the real world. You know, a cheesesteak branding package costs about $3,000. You know, a CD cover for Kanye West costs $350,000. I know those two things because a designer told me. And now you've been told. So everybody that's listening, if you're doing cheesesteak branding, $3,000 sounds good. If you're doing an album for Kanye West, $350,000 sounds good, and everything else probably falls.
But let me interject on that as a shout out. I'm not a designer. I tried to be a designer. I quickly realized I'm not a fucking designer. And I wanted to be involved in this industry. So print was the next thing where I could be connected to it, because I love art. I love cool art. I love amazing visuals. But also at the same time, Jason is real as fuck. Like when he talks about cheesesteak, I don't even see the cheesesteak. I just see the branding and I'm like, that's killer. And yeah, I think right now, just in the creative community, some people might want to step back. When your shit's that good, you don't have to sell it. Like when a product's that good, you don't have to sell it. You just got to put it out there, and people will go after it. And like Matt and Jason and a lot of people that you'll probably never know of are crazy talented, know how to price themselves properly. Because at the same time, when you don't price yourself properly in any industry, you're racing to the bottom and you're going to go fucking bankrupt. Yeah, and what you don't realize is you're hurting everybody, and not just yourself. And we're all, and like, I don't want to go too deep into that, but it enrages me in print. It enrages me in design, because I'm not affected by the design, but I'm like, man, that kid don't even know. He's screwing over everybody. He's screwing over the real ones. Like, you've got to. That's the whole debt. That's a whole other podcast about money, dad.
Dude, like, what would that topic be, so I can write that note down? Valuing yourself.
I bet you all three of us, probably the last thing you do, including me at the end of the day, is what the fuck I'm selling. It's all the other bullshit. It's all the emails. It's all the freaking accounting. It's all the maintenance machines, ink, checking supplies. Like, I think that's when Instagram fools people, is like, that picture is the last thing you post at the end of the day. It's all the bullshit it took to get that picture that nobody sees, because nobody wants to watch that 2-hour video.
That's true, man. It's like watching like a marathon runner, you know, just posting the picture of like them crossing through the ribbon at the end, you know, like it's not all the training and reading reviews on like shoes and like the most
mile 15 and mile 15 his muscles are twitching because he's dehydrated and he's about to pass out.
Yeah, it's just that perfect little snapshot of this is how easy it is. Look, but yeah, I think all that stuff is like super valid, and warrants an entire episode for sure, because it's an interesting it's an interesting tangent to what we're talking about.
So
Basically, real quick, I guess my shout out would be to all the real motherfuckers out there that will never get the attention they truly deserve, that are grinding that shit out when nobody knows and is paying attention. Cheers to you. Like, if you hear this, know that there are others of us out there, and don't fucking, when you want to give up, we're out here.
So
Like,
let's bake some action items in here instead of just talking about these glorious concepts of like what we're seeing and noticing. So if you were someone, and I would say most listeners here are just trying to find their path outside of a day job and life responsibilities, how curated should they be? How big of a social presence do they feel they need to have? When should they share the wins? You know, when should they share the lows? What is too curated? When should they show the human behind their work?
I think that, I don't know, as far as the curation goes. I mean, I have
And there's
the
no
smallest
one size
Instagram.
fits all answer
Right.
to this too. It's just based on your
I have
guidance.
the smallest following by numbers, as far as numbers go, but I've also probably the biggest in my community as far as where we're sitting. And so to me, it's a balance. I remember Bob Ewing saying, and by the way, Scotty, when you have 3 times the guests, you get 3 times the name drops. And so that's just extra value. So Bob said that every time that he posts a picture of his kids, he loses 50 followers. And a few months went by, and then you could tell that he finally just said, fuck them. And he just started posting pictures of his kids in there. And to me, it's just, you're creating an image. I don't put a lot of pictures of my kids on there because I have 4 beautiful girls, and that's none of y'all's business. And I don't want Grizz following my 4 daughters.
Hey, I got a daughter. I ain't no creeper like that.
And so my kids are too good for y'all, and that's why I don't post them. But as far as the work goes, I see a lot where people say, put out the work that you want to get, and what you put out, you'll get back. But what I say is don't put out anything that you would not want to do 100 more times. And that includes with the work that you're doing. If you're making a logo, don't do anything that you don't want to have to do 100 more times. It's just like you got babies. Whenever you warm up a baby bottle, the first time you warm up a baby bottle, you got to warm it up every time from then on out. If you just never do it to begin with, they don't know what they're missing. You don't have to do it. But if you do one thing for a baby, you got to do it 100 or 1,000 more times. It's the same thing with clients, the same thing with Instagram. It's all that. Whatever you put out there once, don't do it unless you want to do it 1,000 more times.
And I would also add to it, like, don't be afraid to show a little bit of who you are, whether it's kids or not. Like, I talk about the secret sauce, like, what is it that makes you, that unique thumbprint that you put onto your work that you share with the world? And if you don't want to share about your life and your family with kids, that's fine. But maybe you're like me, weirdly obsessed with pizza. You fucking love cats, or you're a plant lover.
Right.
You smoke a lot of weed, or whatever it is, a little bit of your identity to like let people know, hey, here's the human behind the work, because people aren't just hiring because, oh, look at fucking Sally Josephine over there. She just does incredible work. But like, a lot of these people are being hired or referred out or being asked to be on podcasts or being brought on stages because of the person they are, the human they are behind the work. So, I would say, like, don't be afraid to show your weirdness, those weird quirks, wave your freak flag, show your face every once in a while. Don't feel like you have to just be a hyper curated robot and have a beautiful, sexy feed like Matt Dawson over there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's funny, man, because I think the tipping point for me was, I can't remember what conference it was at, but people start to know the name and they don't know who you are. Like they could be talking to anybody, and then they realize, like, that's you. Like you're behind, like, this project or Type Combo Tuesday or Crop or whatever. And I was like, oh shit, like, yeah, I don't really post anything from like my real life. And so now, like once I kind of like shifted over, and like I love listening to records back to back on Friday. It's like this kind of like ritual celebration end of the week thing that I do. So every now and then I'll post a vinyl Friday picture. And it's one of my favorite records that I'm listening to that day. Or like I'll post a guitar, or like something that I found out in the wild, like that reminds people, like, hey, it's just not all carefully curated vectors at 1080 by 1080 pixels. Like trying to inject that little bit of real life, because like at the end of the day, like like you're working with real people. So showing those people that you're also a real person, I think that kind of helps foster some connectivity with people. And it helps people put a face to the name and like kind of like understand like who you are. And it might open up a conversation when you do meet somebody like, oh man, you like Jeff the Brotherhood? I like Jeff the Brotherhood. I saw them in, like Colorado a couple of years ago, instead of being like, oh, you did that beer branding? I did some beer. Like you start to talk about real life shit,
Who the hell's
like
Jeff the Brotherhood?
Jeff the Brotherhood's a band that is awesome, and you should totally listen to it.
But you show your face in your profile too, which I really, really like. Yeah, you got a ton of dope work. You show a little bit of your secret sauce with like the music and your interest in like badge hunting a little bit. So not necessarily showing your family, like share what works best for you. But you don't just share, here's the curated work and I'm gonna hide behind this logo for my avatar.
Yeah.
It's hard to like connect with someone.
Is Jeff the Brotherhood like 3 doors down?
Grizz, I love you.
To give some takeaways, one thing that I did is just to kind of just you gotta believe in yourself, which is like a weird thing to say because everybody's been raised to think that they're the best and that they're unique and they have something to offer that everybody wants, but you have to believe in yourself until that's really true. And it's sort of a make it till you make it, like Matt says, but you just have to go into everything with confidence, whether it's valid, whether it's not. And when you post that thing you're proud of, if you get 50 likes on it, you just be like, that's the Instagram. That's the algorithm's fault. It's not because I suck.
Could I expand on the believe in yourself thing? I'd say a step further than that of the reality of it is, believe in yourself, or get ready to get the shit beat out of you and pick yourself up off the floor.
That's right.
Like you better get used to just getting the shit knocked out of you and picking yourself off the floor, metaphorically, with all the crazy problem solving you got to deal with. But sorry, I had to say that.
It's true. It's true. And you talk about problem solving, Grizz, but you have to be able to identify problems too. And sometimes for me, that is a harder task to identify problems, and that's where leadership comes in. Leadership is who identifies problems, and then you either delegate people to solve them, or you work for yourself and you have to also solve those problems. Or half the time, in my case, I create the problem, and just to give myself something to solve, because I'm trying to work every day. I'm trying to pay for all this stuff that I like to have. I like to go on these trips. And that's the thing, is if something's not coming up, I will invent something. So like, I'm going to do a big poster show. Nobody asked me to, but I see a little gap in my attention span coming up. And I'm going to say, you know what, I'm going to get a couple hundred people together and do a local poster show here. Or Matt say, I've got some time to put on a conference, and then I'll put up a pop-up conference. I don't know how many times I've called Matt and go, do you realize you've done 4 events in 16 months? And he goes, whoa, I did. It's like, yeah, all these badges got the same year on them, fool. And it's amazing.
Yeah, that pushing yourself and creating tasks and projects, like I think guys like us are wired to do that. And sometimes I'm envious of people that can, like whenever you and Jay go fishing, Grizz, I'm just like, shit, I wish I could let my brain, just go do that. Like it's like a mountain to climb enough for me to just like go like ride my bike, because I'm like, oh, I could be making this, or I think it's just different strokes for different folks, or whatever that saying is. But like constantly moving forward and giving myself challenges is that's how I'm wired, and I've enjoyed it. Like I've been beaten down by it, but at the same time, like it's gotten me to where I am, and it's afforded me opportunities that have come my way. So I mean, if it works for you, it works for you. If not, that's cool too.
I would say like when you reference the fishing thing, like I have to force myself to go. Jay was kind enough to invite me, and I guess I didn't annoy him too much the first time throwing the hook when he'd say, wait, don't throw it yet. But it's like I have to force myself to go, because I'll find a reason why I can't go. Like honestly, like I was gonna I was possibly going to ghost y'all on this because I was on press, not because I wanted to, but I'm like, oh man, but I want to be here because I love hanging out with you guys. And it's just, I needed to stop for a minute and like, maybe somebody will hear something out of this and it helps somebody. And that's amazing. But yeah, sometimes I'm kind of in that place where I'm realizing, man, you got to chill out a little bit. You got to force yourself to take a second to just let your brain recover or something. Cause I mean, yeah. Shit'll wear you out.
I have a hard time baking in lights at the end of the tunnel. I'm going like one thing. What's the next thing? Here's the next mountain. I got to climb this mountain. And I'm like, I've burned myself out earlier this year. I haven't taken a day off. I haven't taken a weekend off. So mine is like, here's a forced thing, a forced moment of break. But as we wrap this up, we're definitely going to be doing a round 2 or 3. Let's just make this a staple, because I think somebody out there is going to find some value in this, how to motivate themselves, get out of debt, push themselves to that next level and stop seeking external validation or external results when they got some inner work to do as well. So where can people go to find you all online? And let's just go in that same cadence by introduction. So Jason, Grizz, and Matt.
So I'm most active on Instagram. It's at Jason the 29th. My website is jasonthe29th.com or crunkfriday.com. And I'm always available. Like, hit me up. I pretty much am free with advice, and I have so many people that ask me questions, and I don't care what it is. If you want to ask how much I charge for something, if you want to ask what equipment I use, anything, feel free. And if you see me in real life, that's where I thrive the most, is person to person. I know we got this COVID and shit, but once that's over, if you see me out and about, come up and say hey. And if I go and eat with you, that means we're friends forever. And just holler at me.
Yeah, you can find me at just Grizzly Wheeler, Instagram, grizzlywheeler.com. You can call me at 1-900 Print Hooker, PRNTHKR. But yeah, I just say, I mean, I hope we do this again, but man, if anybody's out there, like, I believe in people. Like, some people drive me crazy, but like, whenever you hit a wall, just know that there's real motherfuckers out there that are in all different places, but just believe in yourself, pick yourself up, because there's a lot of there's way more fake assholes than there are real ones.
Fake assholes versus real assholes.
The cover art right there. You can find me on Instagram at StayGrayPonyBoy and StayGrayPonyBoy.com if you want to see some outdated work. But Instagram's all like the latest
and greatest. Well, I appreciate y'all. We'll definitely be doing this. This is like exceeded expectations, so this will be a good thing. We can keep going. We'll be in touch when this one drops. So peace.
All right.
Thanks, man.
Thanks again for listening. It'd be awesome if you took the time to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and let the comment below so we can connect. Again, if you want to catch a shout out as a future listener of the week, make sure you subscribe to the show on iTunes and give it a rating and review.